Hi guys, welcome to an introduction to web. I'm going to take you through a few different uh, types of websites. My focus in teaching you guys about websites is going to be content based. That's what I specialize in. So I've probably done over 100 websites, I don't know, maybe 200 websites. Typically, my job is to think about the concept behind them, think about how they come to life, the user's experience a little bit, and try and create something memorable. So I'm going to show you just a few different types of projects. So this is for the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. Every few years they come up with numbers of how Vancouver is doing economically, and they used to do it just in a book, and we said, hey, why don't we bring this onto the web, make it a little bit more interesting. So you can sort of see here a little bit of a flyover of Vancouver, and then sort of lots of clickable elements on here. So, you know, really exciting stuff like transit infrastructure, housing affordability, and all of these are sort of clickable with different types of content. So
housing affordability is a significant issue.
So interviews with the people at the actual Board of Trade. So a lot of different types of information that you can sort of glam on from here. Let's see, I'll show you a few other things about here. So a lot of different types of information broken down into different pages, using their sort of color palette, a lot of sort of infographics, so it's movable, little things to click on so people can sort of see the different stats. And so that's kind of what I do. I sort of try and find different ways to get into these things, to add sort of value to some of these projects, and just so there are tons of different types of websites. So I'm going to take you through a few. So something like this is very sort of information based. There's a lot of technical information that they want to get across, and that is just really one sort of type of website. We would take a magazine that we used to do for the Michael Smith Foundation and kind of realize it as a digital piece. So this was the first one that went out, so you can sort of see a little bit of movement, a little bit of parallax scrolling, lots of imagery. We had interviews with each person in the magazine, sort of movable numbers, a lot of clickable content, things like that. So for them, it was a great fun piece, because you could sort of take everything that had been done in a publication like a magazine and basically turn it into digital content. And that's sort of this is one of the first, this is the first time we did it for these guys. And now
setting the direction for health research in BC. BC has a vibrant health
so you
research.
can sort of see there's video, there's clickable content. So you really can do things on websites that you can't do in publication. But in this case, this really is a publication by its very nature. Semester, you will be designing 2 different sites, and I will brief you more on those, but we'll be working in Squarespace, so I thought I'd better show you a Squarespace site so we can see. Basically, with a Squarespace site, you can pretty much do anything you can do on any site that's built in WordPress or anything like that, other than host files. So this was a site I did for fishing lodge this summer. So much like the project you're going to work on, wrote all the headlines, did all the content, hired a videographer, photographer, and then basically created this sort of scrolling one-page site, and it also has so it has lots of things like galleries and things like that. And then with this one, there's lots of secondary pages. That's sort of, so breaking it down into experience, activities, lodge, packages, all of that sort of thing. So a little bit of movement, as well as on the homepage, we shot just a teaser video for this project, so you can sort of see that a little bit as well. So you can sort of see, the great thing about websites is there's lots of ways to add interesting content. So, whether it's hiring a photographer to take underwater shots and getting really good photography, or hiring a drone photographer to shoot a video, all of that is part of putting together a website. And it can be a lot of fun. And much like any other design, you're still designing with systems, you're designing with type and all of those other things, but you're able to bring the content to life a little bit, that ways that you can't with print design. So we will be working in Squarespace, and hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of some of the things that we're talking about. So video and moving images, color systems, all of those still apply, and especially apply to website design. So a completely different type of website. This was branding and basically recreating complete brand for the Royal Columbian Hospital Foundation. So basically what we presented was the Royal Columbian Hospital is the busiest critical care center in BC. So that's really sort of the angle that we went with, and that was sort of the new approach that we talked to them about. And so with that, it was again shooting a little bit of video. So you can sort of see, obviously a lot different, because it's a hospital foundation and it's all about critical care, but another very different type of website. And this is just showing an example of more of a information-based, so article-based websites that we used to do. This was all about who is responsible for oil tankers in Canadian waters if they have a spill. This is for Clear Seas Canada. So kind of a design for good, but really this is sort of all about information. So lots of sort of icons about tanker sizes and capacities and things like that. Very sort of coming up with a color palette just like any other design system. With this one, it was sort of keeping everything white and having sort of these hits of color as you go through it. and lots of information about where spills have happened, how big they are. Again, lots of sort of information, social media cards that could be sent out, things like that, moving charts and stuff. So these are always kind of fun to work on. Again, lots of icons and things like that. And I think we did quite a few of these different types of sites. I'll show you one more. So this is all about underwater noise and marine mammals, and how underwater noise is affecting wildlife. And we probably talked about this in a couple of our other projects from last year, so I think I may have shown you this last year. But again, opportunity to do something sort of information based, taking an article and adding a lot of animations to it, so actual sounds of whales, lots of things like that. So that's the great thing about websites, is that you can still do the same things you do with print design, but you can add a little bit of movement to it, things that are kind of interesting, and lots of things that with sort of interactive maps, all sorts of things like that. So it really does enable you to sort of come up with design systems, but then really sort of make them come to life. So one of our projects will be a little bit like this, but not exactly like this. One of the downsides to doing website work that you'll find out pretty quickly is that they have a very short shelf life. So the sort of hundreds of websites I've worked on, typically within 5 years they will have changed, and typically the fastest thing that happens to them is clients tend to ruin them by putting bad stock shots on them. And so you create something that you spend hundreds of hours on, and then within a year it can look completely different. So I say that because they also have short shelf lives because they use the URLs for a different project. So I wanted to show you this one because it does pertain to your first project, which is choosing an environmental topic, finding an article about it, and basically turning that into a website. So this was called Into the Arctic, and this was by a firm called Hello Monday, which is one of the best digital agencies in the world. And they came up with this beautiful sort of interactive website. So you can sort of see here, starting right at the very beginning, and unfortunately now it's just screenshots that are left. But they had a video, really beautiful photography, so lots of interactive elements, so maps and icons, so you can sort of see the North Pole expedition. You can see the set of icons they worked on for that. Lots of sort of sidebars, so things like little click-throughs of ice seals, and you can sort of see these, you can sort of see the set of icons that they came up with. So again, it's the same thing. Good design is good design, so it definitely, all of the same sort of ideas work in web design as they do in print design. The only difference is the topography has to be a little bit simpler. So this was just an amazing website that they did. This won a lot of awards. So it had lots of video, lots of graphs and charts.
Every day, multinational oil companies are pillaging the Arctic for profit. Greenpeace are taking steps to prevent this from happening.
So you can sort of see they did lots of video as well, and yeah, just so it was, and then here we're looking at the mobile version of it. So this, and then you can sort of see some of the awards they won for that. So Cannes, One Show. So those are the two of the bigger awards you can win. Awards is another one. So if you have a chance, have a look at some of their work. Hello Monday does some amazing websites. And I would say they're one of the firms that really sort of embraces sort of bringing together print elements, design fundamentals, and then really so this semester we're going to work on 2 projects, and unfortunately I was going to have you work on Two Worlds Cancer collaboration, but I haven't been able to do a hard edit with the writer and the content person, so we're not going to be able to work on that. But we are going to work on 2 different types of projects in our class. So our very first project is going to, like I said, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, it really is more based on content, and that's what I want to get across to you guys, that as you get into 3rd year and 4th year, you'll learn a lot more about UX and UI from Mike and Carly. Really what I offer is understanding content and how it pertains to websites, how to develop content. The design of a website basically is what I have done. So in this very first one, we are going to design an environmental site. So it will be a 3-page site, meaning that there's going to be a landing page where the majority of the content is, but there's also going to be 2 secondary pages, just so you start getting used to the idea of understanding site mapping, and site mapping is basically how you guide users through the website and how they interact with it. So we'll be looking at a lot of the sort of basics to begin with. So things like site mapping and wireframing, basic user experience. We're going to start in either Illustrator or InDesign. It doesn't matter to begin with. That's where we're going to do our wireframes. So with this very first one, you're going to choose an article, a story, or several, and you're going to merge them to create one succinct environmental website based on your choosing. It also can be social. So if you decide that there's a social cause that you would like to do, that's absolutely fine too. I've sort of just put environmental, but yeah, you can absolutely do whatever you like from a social standpoint as well. So the idea behind good websites that have a lot of content. So these will be a little bit heavier content than if it was just like a site that is selling something. So one of the keys when you're designing these types of sites is to sort of break up information, right? So you never want to have too much heavy copy that runs on and on and on, and that is a challenge when you're working on something that actually has a lot of copy. So the ways you work around these things is lots of I try and segment information. So if I have a big sort of pull quote with an image, then I can present copy after that. But you'll see here, I'm basically presenting a couple stats, a quote, a little bit about the organization, and then I'm moving on to another big image, right? And so I'm using these images, I'm using icons and quotes and things to break up the information, a little bit of a slideshow. So as you go through this website, you'll see that a lot. So even in I think even in here we have a few sort of actual stories. So if you look at this one, this is all about their work in India. So we start off with a big image. We introduce some bigger text, copy, where they're working. So these are all like, you can do this through Google Maps. And then as you go through it, we don't go too far. So you can sort of see how we're breaking up information. And this is a lot more common in web design than it is in print design. You guys know from looking at websites all the time that you just do not experience a website and with continual text. So you want to try and break up this information, keep it palatable, and not have sort of run-on text. So that's really what we're going to try to do with our sites that we're going to build. So the secondary pages that you will be looking at are things like about the organization, contact. So nothing too major on this first one. So like I said, how this course is going to break down is we're going to work on the first one is the environmental site. We're going to work on the deliverables without working in Squarespace. So the beginning of the semester is going to be primarily working on things like the sitemap, the wireframes, style sheets, a design mock-up in Illustrator, rewriting the headlines and titles, creating 2 original icons. So there's lots of design elements, lots of understanding how the site is going to work that's going to happen before we actually do the site. Once we have all of those things done, that is so setting all of that stuff up, wireframe, sitemaps, style sheets, mock-up, that's going to be one project. The next project will be taking that site and bringing it into Squarespace and bringing it to life. So that will be P2. So on here, it'll be creating, taking all of those things, implementing them into Squarespace, again, writing the headline subheads, creating the banner images, making sure that all of that works, and that will be project 2. I'm not 100% sure how long that will take, so I'm going to keep it open and see how this first one works, breaking it down this way, and then really our second website that we're going to do in Squarespace is completely different. So this one I'll call Make It and Sell It. So we're going to go through the same iterations that we do on the first one. So we'll set up the wireframe, sitemap, style sheets, mock-up. But this one is all about creating a product and then selling it on your website. So you will create a product that has packaging. The idea is that you're going to use this website as a microsite to sell your packaging. So you're going to create a intriguing fictional brand. You're going to tell the story of the brand on the website. So you're going to have a landing page. You're going to have a secondary product page that features the product, price points, ordering buttons. The site has to describe the product. You have to be able to order the product. And then with this one, we're hopefully working, you'll be able to take some of this into Andy's class, because one of the things that is a requirement on this project is video or animation. So you can sort of see the on P3, it's all about setting everything up through wireframes and sitemap and mock-up and everything else. Then the second part is delivering the sort of video or animation, making sure that you have sidebars, social media, all the things that we look at when we're working in print design, but it's really bringing it to life there. So it's really 2 projects, and then each one has 2 parts. And we're going to see how it goes. If I feel like we're blowing through stuff really quickly, then we'll work on some in-class projects. I do have 2 in-class projects that I have set up for the course that is primarily just design-based, nothing that we would actually do in Squarespace. So you can sort of see how we break it down through the course, and this is all going to be up on Moodle as well. So we're going to look at just a couple websites that are fairly similar to what we're going to create. So you're going to find an article or a story, and you're going to piece them together for an environmental cause or a social cause, and that is going to give us our first project. So I wanted to show you a couple interesting sort of longer sort of websites that are based on articles. So this was one done by the in-house team at New York Times, and it was all about it was sponsored by Netflix for Orange is the New Black, and what they did was actual story about how women inmates are treated and what it's like to be in jail or in prison. So it has some nice, interesting motion at the beginning when you scroll, but you can sort of see, some of the differences of article-based websites is you still have to have copy in there. So, but you also don't want to go too long, like I mentioned before, without having something interesting. So, with this one, they had sort of lots of video.
I think I had that look in my head of what a woman in prison might have looked like. But we don't have a look. We are your everyday women that made bad choices.
I had a Hermes scarf, a Tahari coat dress, a pair of high heels, and that is not really conducive to shackles. And I can remember trying to keep up with everybody because they were all ahead of me and they were moving at a certain pace, and I was the only one with heels on.
When they gave us the pillowcase, it had a sheet, it had like a razor, a toothbrush, a bar of soap in it.
7 underwears, like 3 bras.
It was filthy. There were wall-to-wall women laying around on the floor.
So yeah, so as you can see, this is it's basically taking a really good sort of print article, and then it's adding things like pull quotes, and this one has video, it has photographs. Also, it has these banners that they use to break up the information, which works pretty nicely. So it kind of it changes the pace a little bit. It changes the tone of the actual article, having these sort of illustrative these illustrated banners across that break up the information. And that is one of the things that works very well in website design is using larger banners that will take up the entire space, or videos, things like that. So you can sort of see there's all sorts of, if you look at this, you don't go very far without new content, right? And so we have this running text, but we also have these large images. There's lots of video, galleries. So, this is all possible. This can all be done in Squarespace, and there's a few things that you wouldn't do in Squarespace here, but everything else you can do. So
we can learn anything we can learn
sound
in prison,
bites,
but
right?
once we get outside, we have to learn to adapt to the world outside. And if we don't have the support, I mean, what can you do?
So all of these can be done. So if I'm doing something like this, I might do an icon above it. This can be made up content, and this is where I hope that you guys sort of do your best to try and make this content come to life. So it's one thing just to have this written copy, but where I want to see the big gains are, writing the headlines, writing the title of the thing, understanding that you are responsible for finding the photography, and you are responsible for writing the pull quotes, adding illustration if it has illustration or icons, but you are responsible for the user's experience. And because you are going to select articles, they're going to have more text than a typical website does, and that is the challenge, right? You want to try and keep it fairly compact. So if you look at from top, I'm just going to scroll through the entire thing here, and just notice how we break up the content with large banners, large images. These can be full bleed, but you do not go very far, and then here's the end of it, right? So this is a really good example of kind of what you should be aiming for as far as length. It can be a little bit longer than this if you want, but this gives you a really great experience. You read the story and you get all the secondary content. So it's less about reading a story like in a magazine. It's more about keeping the viewer entertained as they read this copy, and sort of creating a really interesting experience that you would never be able to do on a print piece. When we look at some of these websites that are article based or story based. Another word for it is long form websites. So I just wanted to show you one more. This one was done over 10 years ago, and it's still one of my favorites. So this is the Long Strange Trip of Doc Ellis. He was a pitcher in the 70s who threw a no-hitter while he was on LSD. So the whole article is a series of illustrations. It has a lot of really nice sort of parallax scrolling in certain areas, photographs, illustration, really nice combination. So it's still one of my favorite ones. So, and it has a few nods to print publications like drop caps and some really nice sort of overlaid pull quotes. And as you go through it, it's actually quite long, much longer than what we're aiming for, but some really nice details of tickets and things like that, and archival photographs of when the night happened, and you know, some like really simple. This is just a really simple photo gallery, which can be done easily in Squarespace. So a lot of the stuff that you see in this website works because it's really well designed, and it allows the viewer to sort of discover a lot of different sort of hidden gems. So look at this strip of photographs as you go down. Really harkens back to old film cameras. So and then mixing in interviews, mixing in illustration. So it's got lots of really interesting things. The type is a bit out there, but that's okay. So this is still one of my favorites. How it uses like different styles and really kind of captures that kind of 70s feel. So ESPN long form is a great place to look at some of these. What we're after is not quite as long as this, but it just kind of shows you how you can really mix in content and keep the viewer sort of reading the article and adding value to the websites. The New York Times actually has an entire division just dedicated to doing sort of long form websites. So they're pretty good at it. And again, the articles are much longer than what we're after.
No ability to control what was happening to me. I was being tossed over and.
This one is about an avalanche and people that survived it. And as you can see, as you scroll down, it's got some really nice features, like the background sort of overlays. Some of these things you could do this in Squarespace, but you'd have to have the content built and then use a background video to do this. But you can sort of see really sort of nice, archival photographs to talk about, sort of the history of avalanches, and lots of videos, but really nice they have great slideshows. Obviously it's the New York Times, so they have some great photography. But for you guys, one of the things you want to do is you really want to figure out what is the topic. Figure out when you're thinking about the topic, try not to be too generic. So an example would be, I want to do something on panda bears, and then you end up doing a website that just gives you all the information about where panda bears live and their eating habits and things like that. That's a little bit too generic. So what you really want to do is try to come at this topic of a website, try and find some really interesting articles about it, and then really make those things come to life. So you can look at different magazines, do searches, all of those things. But the idea is that it's not, it doesn't become just a generic sort of take on a panda bear. It actually, it actually has a point of view, has an interesting take, an interesting article, and then you work to bring that thing to life. So that is our first project, P1. And I will post some more videos on the next one we'll look at is on creating wireframes and sitemaps, and then eventually moving into showing some of the features of Squarespace.